Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi there, Seahawk fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down, as always. Well, not always. Keith just got back from a nice little time off. Keith Myers, co-host Keith Myers. Welcome in, Keith. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. A nice vacation in Hawaii. Really relaxed. Those are the first two shows I've missed in the history of this show, and we're 700 episodes in. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and thank you for for all of that. It was kind of cool though. Dan came in and we talked about edge rushers, and then Bryce came in. We talked about the linebackers, but we also dove into about a half-hour segment on Jalen Milroe, which I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to any of that at all, but I would highly recommend anybody go back and listen to that Bryce Coots episode on the, probably the last half hour or so spent on Jalen Milroe. It's just very insightful and kind of fun, a fun conversation, mostly speculative, but it was nonetheless very informative. Bryce really knows his stuff on quarterbacks for sure. And it definitely showed in that conversation, but you were definitely missed. No question about it. I'm glad you had a great time. I'm glad you're back. But now we're fast forwarded a little bit. We bypassed a couple of position groups, while you were gone. And now we're on to the safety position group. Yeah. We've got an upcoming, question and answer show, our 9th annual, question and answer show with beer tasting. If I recall correctly, last year I had the assignment of picking the type of beers that we were going to bring into the show, and so it is going to be your choice this time, I think.
Okay.
Unless we independently go out and bring in whatever we want. But what type of beer are you thinking this year?
I don't know. Let me think about it. There's lots of different options. Last year, if I remember right, we had Dan Viennes on for that show, for the beer tasting show. And I made a mistake and got myself 3 very strong beverages. And
I think those were ambers last year, right?
Yep. And all of mine
that
were
was
Imperials.
good. That was a good show. And also great beer. Like that was one of my favorite. Of course, I'm a kind of an amber guy anyway, but those are one of my favorite episodes and tasting. How
do you feel about how do you feel about Irish red ales?
I really like Irish reds. I mean, I think one of my reds that I had last year was
Irish red.
Irish red.
An Irish red show.
Okay. I'm going to write that down.
That will be fun. So we're talking safeties today. It's an interesting group in that there's not a lot of change as far as the guys who are on the field from the end of last year. But they did add one significant rotational piece who will be a blast to watch play. So,
yeah, I'm going to be curious as to, when we break this all down, how you think the snap counts will go. And whether or not he's going to be a rotational piece or if he's going to be a fixture. And I just kind of want to get that from you, but let's talk about it. So, let's talk about the guys I think that came up last year, really in Mike McDonald's first year as a coach. He inherited those players. We're talking about Julian Love. We're talking about Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant kind of came into his own. He came into last year, Keith, as a player who had moved around like 3 or 4 different times to try to figure out his identity, where he fit in the defense. He had some up and down seasons. His rookie year was pretty decent, but then he just kind of got lost in the shuffle a couple times, battled injuries during that rookie campaign as well. And last year, man, he really kind of just settled into a single spot or, in the defense. They move him around a little bit, but he just had his identity from the very beginning and kind of thrived in that role along with Julian Love, and just really made that defense, the back half of that season after Ernest Jones arrived, they were able to kind of just really focus on their group without having to worry about what everyone else was up to. And I thought it worked really well.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the things that happened was they essentially he got hurt, but then when he was healthy, he didn't get his job back. But Jenkins, who was the starting strong safety with Julian Love on the back end, and when he got hurt, they brought Kobe Bryant in as a free safety and moved Julian Love up to strong, which that's one of the things that's awesome about Julian Love is he can play both. He's really versatile, does a lot of things well. But there were a lot of reasons to be concerned when that move happened, because Kobe Bryant, the year previous was a missed tackle, like waiting to happen. I mean, his tackle rate was really poor, a lot of bad angles, just a lot of just not good football out of him. He was a guy that, during training camp, we were thinking, look, if things break wrong for him, he might end up being on the outside looking in on a roster spot. And he ended up making the roster. But when he came in and actually had a job and was just the free safety and was the guy at the back end doing that, didn't have to move around, didn't have to play a lot in the nickel or up in the box. He could just focus on one thing. It's like everything clicked because he really looked good the second half of the season last year. And it's a testament to how hard that kid works, because he's known for his work ethic, and the coaches keep talking about how hard he works, and he's always in the film room, and he's always working and trying to get better. And we saw the results of that because he really just owned that free safety spot once he got on the field. And that's awesome. I love those kind of stories, and it's great for him. Great for the Seahawks too. So yeah, kind of
Jenkins
one of the cool
really never worked himself back in,
No.
It was Julian Love and Kobe Bryant from there forward, and the play elevated after that.
Yep.
So they're running it back this year. Don't blame them. But it's Kobe Bryant's contract year. Julian Love was extended prior to last year, so he's got a couple more years, including this year, to play. And Julian Love is just one of those underrated guys. When he came from, what was it, the Giants, Keith, like now this will be the 3rd year that he's been here in this system. He's just really kind of found himself and established himself as a kind of a top 10 safety in the league. He doesn't particularly do anything extraordinarily well. Like, it's not like he's just wow on the field, but he's so solid. He's like, he shows up, he plays, he's consistent, he's available.
He doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. His missed tackle rate is outstanding. He really does play the run. That's probably his best attribute, although in coverage, he's underrated. He makes plays on the ball. Just really kind of a solid team safety, if I can use that term. It's not, he fits the defense fits him, and he can move around a lot in Mike McDonald's defense. They can play him back. He can be part of a 2-high situation. He can come up and play in the box. The diversity with him is one of his best attributes. And it's a good, solid group because he's in it. I would say that he's Pro Bowl. Like, I think he made the Pro Bowl last year. So he's kind of a Pro Bowl level safety, not an all pro, not back into the, rankings, but he's like solidly in the top 8, 10, 12 range in the NFL, which is perfectly awesome as a guy that's a team player and willing to kind of do whatever it takes to make that room better. And he does.
Yeah. And that's his versatility is key to what Seattle does, because they want to move guys around and not have alignment dictate everything. And so don't make it easy on the quarterback, right? The opposing quarterback. And so he can line up, in one place and end up with a completely different assignment coming after the snap and rotate out. And he can do anything. And that is really helpful for McDonald as he's, game planning and that kind of stuff. You got to have guys like that, especially in this scheme, in this defense. And he really kind of makes all that stuff work.
All right. So let's incorporate the addition that everyone's really interested in talking about. So Seattle went out. They were very interested in a safety that they've, their scouting department scouted all year for the last couple of years. But guy shows up to the Senior Bowl and really does a great job. They interviewed him. They brought him in on a 30 visit as well. Super interested in him. So interested. They moved up. They had a first round grade on him. I think the rumors are, don't know if this is true, but it's been stated a couple different times. I've heard this, where if our left guard prospect that we drafted, Gray Zabel, was not available or at 18 because he had gone earlier, they were willing to spend the 18th pick on Nick Emenwari.
Yeah.
I'm going to say luckily they didn't have to. It worked out that we got Gray Zabel, but we also got Nick Emenwari. They moved up to pick 35 in the second round to make sure that they got him. And why do you think that Mike McDonald and company were so interested in this player, especially as it pertains to having him inside this defense?
Because athletically, he's a once-in-a-generation player. He's an absolute unicorn in the NFL. His combination of size, weight, speed, agility, just athleticism is crazy. This guy, the stuff he can do athletically, no one else in the league can. He's like Derwin James with a lot more speed, right? Well, the guy in Baltimore, Hamilton, but more physical. Like, is he a finished product? No. His game is dictated on the fact that he knew in college he was the most athletic player on the field, no matter who they were playing. And he's going to have to refine some of that in the NFL. But
most players do.
Yeah, all players do. You don't get athletes like Nick Emenwari. They're just not out there. They really aren't. I mean, he's an absolutely special individual in terms of that kind of stuff.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. He came into the draft like 6'3", 227 pounds. And I was going to say to the combine, ran a 4.38 40. He had a 43-inch vertical and an 11 feet 6-inch broad jump and a 1.49 split on a 4.38 40, which is phenomenal for any sized player. But a guy that's 6'3", 227 pounds, it's that split for me that separates him from all the others, because that agility, that change of direction, the athleticism, of course, the size that you can't teach. But, you'd mentioned the idea that he's unrefined, needs a little bit of time. He's not, a perfect prospect. That's why he's available in the second round, et cetera. You didn't say those things, but that's kind of the general thought process. And I would argue that he's a little bit better of a player than people give him credit for. I mean, this is still a player that like plays the position really well. He defends the run really well. He's very physical. When he fills his lanes, he can drop back into coverage. Probably his most underrated skill set is his route recognition skills and his ability to drop back into cover. Now he's not going to be able to cover your maybe premier wideout that has a really amazing route tree, but any tight end, any running back out of the backfield, this guy's going to match up to really pretty well. And then the scheme diversity part of it, I think, now that's down in the box type safety stuff that I'm talking about. The back end stuff, the alignment things that Mike McDonald eventually wants to be able to do with him is going to be the thing that kind of he needs to work on. Like his processing speed is really amazing, but when he first gets started, he's going to have to think about every step that he takes and his position and so forth. And when he gets to that point in the season where things begin to slow down for him, he's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So the idea when we say that, he's unrefined and all of that, it's, some of his footwork and, just his transition from his back pedal to turn and run and things like that. There's it's technical. It's not stuff that is really easy to put to pick out, but it causes, missed steps here and there and that kind of stuff. They did not prevent him from being effective in the college game. He is a good football player as is. But the fact that he's a good football player with refinement that still needs to happen means that when he does do that, he's going to be a great football player. And I think that's really one of the things that's when we say that, he's unrefined and he has work to do and all of that, I think that's what's missing in that part is that he's good without those technical refinements that he needs. Once he makes them, this is a guy who has a potential to be an all-pro.
Absolutely.
I mean, he is Cam Chancellor in terms of size, but with way more speed.
And agility.
Yeah.
Cam was just a kind of a heat-seeking missile in one direction. Cam was just amazing, and his timing and his instincts and his ability to read plays eventually. But that first year, Cam wasn't that player yet.
No, not in his first year. He was a really good athlete, not necessarily straight line speed, but he had that broad jump. He had that power. He had that, acceleration. There were a lot of things about Cam's game besides just, his ability to hit people. He was such a fantastic player. And his best attribute was that he was one of the leaders of that defense, off the field, on the field, and he was the captain. And, that should never be understated. But physically, he was kind of a unicorn in his day, being 6'4", 230.
Right. He should have been a linebacker in anybody's, book, naturally coming in. If you didn't know his athleticism just by looking at him, you would say, okay, you're a linebacker, go to the linebacker group. And, but he was a safety with a linebacker's body. I mean, there's a big difference.
Nick Inamori he's an inch shorter. So he's 6'3" instead of 6'4". But he's 1 pound lighter. But he has
a frame. He has a frame to add another 5, 6, 7 pounds of lean muscle as well.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things if you're wondering why everyone's so excited about this guy who was a second round pick and whatever, it's it's pure athleticism. He's a one of a kind. This kind of guy has come around once a generation. Trying to think of the last one. Maybe
Derwin James. Lott. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, Derwin James when he came out, he was a top 5 draft pick, top 8, I think. And
yeah, but he didn't have
same sort of
speed.
That's true. That's true. But he was already an accomplished football player. Like Nick Emanwari still has that growth. And everyone, and he landed for me in the best spot possible. Like,
oh yeah,
a safety and linebacker guru, type of a defense for him, where the safeties and the linebackers are kind of an outsized importance in the defense. So he's got this perfect opportunity in front of him to learn from the best, and Julian Love as a teammate, and you add, Kobe Bryant as a teammate, and some of the other guys in the back end, and Carl Scott as a teacher, and then Mike McDonald as well. And all just the scheme itself helps him. I mean, it's a perfect combo for him to come into the NFL. There's not going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on him to be successful immediately. So he is going to have a chance to make mistakes and learn from them. But I wanted to go back to that comment you made earlier about Seattle got its, a rotation piece. So talk to me about what you're thinking there and the evolution of this player, if not this year, in years to come.
Well, typically you run with two safeties and you've got your two starters. They're the guys that are returning, that were part of that defense that was a top 5 defense down, for the last 9 games. But now you're going to add this other piece. Well, you're not going to keep him off the field because that would be stupid. You got to play him. You got to get him on the field. He's just too damn good, and not to have him on there. And you need him to get playing time and develop and get better. So he's going to get playing time. But how do you use him? Well, you definitely use him in short yardage situations where he can come up and play the run and do, some in the box things. You're going to see him as a third safety on the field when they run a big nickel. So rather than bringing in an extra corner, they're going to bring in an extra safety. And that extra safety will be Emanwari. And so he's going to take snaps away from guys
Tyrese Knight.
Tyrese Knight at linebacker. He'll come off in order to bring a safety in order to, when they go to the nickel. He gives them, more range, better coverage ability, just tremendous speed, all of those things. But he isn't the absolute tackling machine in the box the way Tyrese Knight is.
He's not bad though.
They offer different things. And yes. So you'll see, them find ways to get Emanwari on the field whenever possible. But I don't think he's going to you're not going to see him come on and Julian Love standing on the sideline. Julian Love is a Pro Bowler. He's earned that spot and the team needs him. I mean, the team is better when he's on the field. I don't think you're going to see Kobe Bryant come off the field for Nick Emanwari to come on because they do different things. Kobe Bryant's a free safety. He's the guy at the back end. He's the guy that's, making sure that everything gets cleaned up and nothing, the big plays don't happen. Emanwari is going to be in the box. He's going to be, in the middle of the field. He's going to be mixing it up with the game's best tight ends and stuff. Yeah. So they do different things. So I think it's a matter of, you're going to see the team find ways to get Emanwari on the field, but it's probably going to be, 60% of the snaps, maybe 50% of the snaps, somewhere in that range. Early on, it might be lower. It might be in like the 40s or the high 30s, which is going to disappoint people, but that's just, he's a rookie and he's learning. I think by the end of the season, you're going to see him 65% of the time, with the idea that Kobe Bryant's in his contract year and Emanwari might be the starting strong safety next year, with Julian Love dropping from the strong safety role back into the free safety role.
That's exactly the way I see it too. The other guys that would potentially come off the field too would be like Josh Jobe and Shaquille Griffin, as well as the third corners in place of Emanwari. So I agree with you on that kind of evolution, but if you take a look at the defense, there's always like your top 4 to 6 players play 100% of the snaps. They just never come off the field. And I see him working into that sort of a thing. So when you start at 40% and maybe work up to 60, 65%, it's hard because he plays one of those positions that traditionally you would see, him come off the field in certain situations and so forth. But I think he's going to end up being so good, you can't not have him on there. And I think that his skill set allows him to move around so many different ways that I think eventually he's going to be one of those 100% snap players. Now, for me, I don't know if that's by the end of the season or if it's next year, but I don't think it's any worse than next year. Like, yeah, I think he's on that fast track to where he's going to be a key cog in this defense.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see defensive linemen play 100%. They're optimized at 70% or 68%, in that kind of range. Right. But everyone else, you're right. You don't pull Ernest Jones off the field unless he's hurt. And right. You don't pull,
Devin
Witherspoon off the field unless he's hurt. And so, yeah, there are guys that play 100% of the snaps, but yeah, I mean, you look at Josh Joby, is the guy, he was the nickel, right? He was the third corner, the guy that comes on, you pull out a linebacker, you bring in an extra defensive back. He was the guy last year. Yes. Now he's battling, Quill Griffin for that spot, which we'll talk about on our next show, but also those guys aren't going to be on the field as much because you're going to see more of a third safety instead of an extra cornerback because you're going to see them find ways to get Nick and Amari on the field whenever possible.
It's a nice problem to have. It's a nice problem to have. Okay. So we can round back around if we need to on those top 3 guys. And that's kind of the rotation. I mean, the next group of players that we're going to talk about, more or less, if they're getting any more than 50, 60, 70 snaps in the entire season, something is wrong. So
it's because somebody got
injury
hurt.
Or whatever. Right.
Yep. Somebody got hurt and missed a ton of time.
More or less looking at making the roster via special teams.
Yep.
And we're talking about Jarek Reed, Tyakota, DeAnthony Bell, AJ Finley. Now, out of those players, the player with the most experience, the player that has, I think, the largest upside, also the oldest prospect of all those, is DeAnthony Bell. Now, DeAnthony Bell came over in free agency. He had 92 snaps in 2004 for the Cleveland Browns, signed free agent contract, $1.37 million. But in 2023, he had 28 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. That was his kind of stat line, which indicates a lot more snaps than just 92. So he had a bigger role in 23, in 24, not so much, left in free agency. For me, a player like that is important because Jarek Reed hasn't really emerged. We drafted him 3 years ago. This is his third NFL season. And then Tyakota really is kind of a practice squad level guy, 33 snaps in 2024, most of those special teams. AJ Finley, same sort of thing. He's played in 26 career games. He's still only 23, but mostly special team snaps. So DeAnthony Bell, to me, is kind of the primary backup and can play special teams as well. So the other guys are in jeopardy of getting cut, depending on how many corners they keep. Talk to me about that back end of the safety room as far as the depth is concerned.
Yeah, they'll keep 4 guaranteed. And it comes down to who is it's all about special teams. Who's the most useful, the best special teams player of that group, and whoever it is that makes the roster. And it has nothing to do with how they play at safety, because you've got 3. You've got enough that even if a guy gets hurt, you've got 2 starters, and so you're not really worried about it. My guess is that they keep D'Anthony Bell simply because if that guy does get hurt, then D'Anthony Bell becomes your primary backup at both positions. They're not really paying him a lot. I went and looked. I was thinking
$1.37 million.
Yeah, that's his cap number. Only 2.25 or sorry, 225,000 is was guaranteed. That was his signing bonus. And so yeah, he's a guy that could end up not making the roster as far as his salary, but I think he makes it because who else in that group do you want coming on the field, right? If a guy gets hurt and you're down to your two and who's your primary backup at that point? I don't think they love any of the other guys as a safety. Like, Reed was a guy that, we had a lot of high hopes for, but he's never stayed healthy. He's struggled with injury since he got drafted, and which is unfortunate because I think he would be a fun player. And, maybe this is the year that he finally stays healthy and gets himself a roster spot and all of that. But until that happens, I would say D'Anthony Bell's probably got the inside track to making the roster. And if they keep a fifth, just because teams do that, Pete Carroll teams love to have an extra safety just for special teams reason. But, Pete's not here anymore. So
I can see that. Mike Macdonald's the similar kind of a guy that views the physicality that a safety can offer you as opposed to another corner or a heavier player that maybe doesn't have the agility. One of the reasons that I think D'Anthony Bell has the edge as well is that Julian Love and Kobe Bryant are more free safety. At least their skill set is optimized as if they play free safety. Now we've got Emanwari. So D'Anthony Bell's 5'11", 214 pounds and plays like that. So he's a very physical player. You go watch him. He likes to hit you. He's a great tackling guy, good form, doesn't miss a lot of tackles. Isn't going to give you a ton of that back end stuff. I mean, he could probably do it in a too high look, but you're not going to put him in a single high look to play that back end. But when you've already got Julian Love and Kobe Bryant to be able to do that, you don't really have anybody that's going to back up Emanwari as a strong safety on this roster unless you switch Julian Love to that. And the team would love to be able to keep Julian Love on the back end and keep him away from the line of scrimmage as he gets older and so forth. He's 27 now. But the physicality of that position really kind of takes its toll. So if D'Anthony Bell can do that to me balances that roster a little bit.
Well, one of the things that, within this scheme and the way Mike Macdonald uses his safeties is he likes guys that are versatile, that you can do a lot of different things with. That's why Julian Love is so valuable to this team. Kobe Bryant offers a little bit of that because he can, play the slot and do some coverage things as a former corner. The guy with the most versatility out of the besides the top three is Jarek Reed, who can do anything. Like he can play in the box, he can cover in the slot, he can be the top end, back of the end guy. He's super versatile. His problem has always been availability. He just has not gotten on the field because he's not been available. But if he's healthy, that versatility and his ability to do all the different things really would be something that Mike Macdonald's going to love. And it doesn't hurt that he's also a good special teams player.
Beyond the numbers and so forth, D'Anthony Bell, when you take a look at the 4 pass breakups and 2 interceptions that he had in 2023, does show a guy that can defend the pass. Now, I'm not sure how far downfield that is, but, that skill set is there. So we'll see. And they really liked him. They've talked about D'Anthony Bell. It's not like he's a mystery to the to the coaching staff. They really like him. They like his physicality. I've heard that he's the guy. I mean, he's the guy that they really like. Jerick Reed, I think, could be that guy, but he's also 5'9", 196. Hasn't been able to stay healthy out on the field like that. And I know Mike McDonald wants those guys to be available. And so we'll see how it goes. I mean, the nice thing about a guy like Jerick Reed is he's been on the roster for a while. He knows his teammates. He's got the trust of everyone. It's just a matter of who shows up and takes the spot.
Yeah. And then, Tyakota is a guy that stuck around on the practice squad for at least 3 years. And I'm just saying that off the top of my head because I know he's been around that long.
It is. This is third season.
But he keeps making the practice squad and then getting called up and then ending the season on the roster for a reason. And that is he is a damn good special teams player. He gets downfield in a hurry and he makes tackles when he gets there. And if you're looking at a back of the rotation player, a fourth or fifth safety, you better be able to play special teams. And he might be the best special teams player of the group. So it's worth, remembering that, keeping an eye on that. And then the final one, unless I'm missing someone that we haven't talked about, is AJ Finley. He's only 23, despite having 2 full seasons in the NFL, but he is 6'1", 188. He is not the biggest guy. He is a deep free safety, a single high guy, or a, two high safety, kind of thing. He's not an in the box guy. Also a special teams player.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize how young he was until I started researching for the show. This is a guy that still has his best football in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's 23 years old. He's already played in 26 career games.
Yeah.
Mostly special teams, but he's a guy that definitely could add value to the point at 23 years old. You get him on your practice squad and you let him, come up if he earns it during the week. And, he's a good player to have stashed there, I think.
Yep.
Another player that I'm going to talk more about on the cornerback room, but I think could be a convert type player is Isis Waxter. He's got the size and the speed and the agility and the physicality that you'd like to see out of your safety room, but he's listed as a corner. He played corner in college. I just don't know if he's got that X factor at that position, especially on our roster. Now they may keep him around on the practice squad. We'll see. It's the back end guy. He's really got to show in order for them to kind of keep him around, and we'll see what happens in training camp and preseason games. But he's a guy that could play both corner and safety, and that offers some value. So what do you think overall? I mean, it seems like it's a better room today than it was this time last year, for sure.
Well, yeah, because last year you had Jenkins, who was signed on a 1-year deal. You knew he was a placeholder, a guy that they were expecting to basically hold down the fort while they found their, eventual long-term guy there. And then you had Kayvon Wallace, who was signed to be a third safety and special teams guy and never really did more than that. In fact, he got beat out by Kobe Bryant along the way for Kobe Bryant to be the starting free safety down the stretch. And so both of those guys are gone and they're replaced by this new Kobe Bryant who played his way onto the field and, almost to a Pro Bowl last year. I think if he had started the year and played all year, he probably would have made it. And then Nick Inamwari, who's just a freaking special, athlete. Those two guys replacing Jenkins and Wallace, you can't look at that and not see, wow, that's an improved position group for your top three. And then I mean, D'Anthony Bell is essentially Kayvon Wallace, but younger. Well, about the same age. But he's now the fourth safety instead of the third.
Yes.
And so, it's easy to see that this is a vastly improved position group.
Yeah, no, I would say it's the most, I mean, just Nikimanwari coming on is going to kind of almost be your most improved position group just because of that. Yep. And the potential there is just oozing. And I think it's going to be a fun toy for Mike McDonald to have, among others. But as far as just new, fresh, shiny, Nikimanwari is going to be a fun watch in the preseason and in training camp. Just to kind of see how they use him, how he's going to fit, how special he really is. All of this is just all chatter and talk and speculation. Of course, you watch the film, all that stuff, but man, somebody shows up in person in the when everyone's a pro, he's going against really good quality tight ends on every snap, running backs that have way more speed than he's used to seeing there at South Carolina. And so it'll be fun to watch that evolve over the season.
Sometimes when you have great athletes like in Amori, it shows up on the combine, but then you go watch the tape and it's not evident that just how good of an athlete they are because they don't play at that speed. Inamori's tape shows him playing at that speed. He plays really fast. And you'll see him with the ball in the air, and it's not even his guy. Someone else blew coverage, and he's just making up distance while the ball's in the air in order to make a play on the ball or make a tackle down the field that he's not supposed to be making. Like, that's not his responsibility to cover them, but he just has that much speed and that much athleticism. And he plays really fast. He really does. His tape's fun to watch.
Yeah, when it all comes together for him, he can play fast without thinking. That's when it's going to be night and day difference during the season. And I expect that to happen for sure. All right. Let's wrap this thing up. Fun show. The last one in our series is the cornerbacks. We're going to do that next. We've got the Q&A show coming up. That's always going to be fun. We'll probably do an entire roster analysis, I think pre-camp, just to solidify where we think the roster stands and maybe kind of forecast the 53 as well and see how we do when it actually comes time to react to that 53-man roster being chosen there the first week of September. Yeah,
those kind of shows are always fun because, we make assumptions and we like, okay, it's probably like this. And then a guy shows up that we didn't expect anything from, but they just freaking show up during training camp and amaze everyone. It's fun. I love this time of year as far as training camp and that kind of stuff because of those stories. The guys that show up and you just have no expectation and then they just wow you. That's always fun.
Love that. In addition to that, this roster construction for Mike McDonald and company this year, with the fact that we're going to carry a fullback, the fact that we're going to carry a third quarterback, really kind of dictate a lot of different moves that are going to be necessitated in order to accommodate that. Whether all of those come from the offensive side of the ball or they go steal a roster spot from the defense as well, to make that happen. It's like, what do you do? At some point, good players are going to be cut. And it'll be interesting to see how the team views that as far as trying to be able to get somebody through to the practice squad. So
without looking, assuming you don't have your roster in front of you, how old is Josh Joby?
He was on a couple different rosters before Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to say he's like 26 or 27.
27. Yes. I think a lot of people, because he kind of came out of nowhere last year and was undrafted people think of him as, oh, he's an undrafted free agent. He's probably 23, 24. Yeah, he was an undrafted free agent 3 years ago.
Yes. Yeah, he's been working hard to make a roster.
He's 27.
It was a breakout year for him last year.
It was absolutely a breakout year for him. He went from being surprised that he was even on a roster to a fixture on a really good defense.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So,
all right. Well, we're going to talk about him and all the other corners on our next show. So hopefully you guys will be back for that. Thank you for watching. Welcome back to the show, Keith. And you know where to find us on all those platforms, our YouTube channel. Subscribe when you get there to make sure that you do not miss a single episode, and leave us a comment, like the show, share it with your friends and family, all that good stuff. So until next time, go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.